Hi, I'm Suki.
And I'm Claire.
Welcome to Getting Psychic, where you can listen to us use ourselves to test the theory that anyone can get psychic. Hi, I am so excited to welcome Pam Grout to Getting Psychic. Pam is an author and travel writer and has a foundation that's mission is to relocate the world's resources away from fear and towards love. Hi, Pam.
Hi, Suki. So great to see you.
Yeah, you too. I'm so excited for you to be here. Welcome to Getting Psychic. I thought we would start out with something light. I thought we could talk about God.
Wow. That's something light and simple. Let's start with the simple things.
So I was thinking, you don't talk about spirit guides or angels really in your books, E squared and E cubed. And you referred to God in a million different ways, my favorite being the dude. Do you think the term God has complicated implications?
Oh, I think the minute you say any word, people have their associations, but particularly with God, there's so many, and a lot of people have baggage with it. In fact, I think I might have said in E squared or one of my books, I said that the word God has more baggage than the Chicago airport during the holidays or something to that effect, or more baggage than a Samsonite store. I mean, the truth of it is we all have our ideas about what God is. And unfortunately, a lot of people have negative associations with that word. So that's part of the reason I use a lot of different words for it. I've probably got, I don't know, 100 synonyms for God. But what do I believe God is really just the life force, this incredibly loving, always giving force that we're all connected to, that we all live in. And so, in some ways, the best term, the one I've been kind of into lately, is just life. The way life is, the way life is always nourishing us and always leading us and guiding us. And because we have these associations with other words and other things that we think are true, we don't always feel that energy, that love, and that whatever. But it's always there; it never leaves. It's 24/7.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. Okay, so your book E squared was published in 2013, right?
It was, yes.
And you've written many other books. I mention you and E squared every time manifesting comes up on this podcast. So it's amazing that you're here.
Well, thank you. So it was you that sold all those books for me. Well, thank you so much.
Well, okay, the podcast has only been around for a year, so I can't take any credit.
Right.
But so how long did it take before E squared became a #1 bestseller on the New York Times bestseller list?
Well, once it took off, it was just like a bottle rocket. But it's an interesting story. I wrote this very same book 10 years earlier. It was published with a different publisher, a different title. It was originally called God Doesn't Have Bad Hair Days. And, the 5 people that read it loved it, but it did go out of print. And, I thought, well, rather than, that was disappointing because I thought it was such a great book, but I didn't, worry about it too much. I went on and I wrote 3 books for National Geographic. And then 2008 happened. And, for journalists, for people that are in the media business, well, particularly the written media business, things really changed. I mean, I was asked to do a 4th book for National Geographic, but they wanted to pay me less. Magazine editors that I'd long written for weren't paying as much. I mean, so many things changed. And I just got this hit and said, what about that book you wrote, way back when, the one God Doesn't Have Bad Hair Days? You always loved that book. Why don't you get it out? I had this hit to get it back out. And so I changed it just a little bit, but it was totally repackaged. It went from God Doesn't Have Bad Hair Days to E squared, which of course is a takeoff on Einstein's E equals MC squared. I sent it off to Hay House, and it literally took off like a bottle rocket. I mean, they didn't put any money into it in the beginning, but once they saw the kind of reaction that people were giving to the book, they did then. I mean, they had Wayne Dyer doing the experiments. They had Louise Hay doing the experiments. So once they saw that it had some real viability, and I kind of knew things were going to be different because soon after it came out, I'm a travel writer, so I'd gone to the Cook Islands, and here I am way out in the middle of the South Pacific, and all these emails were coming in. I think it kind of hit just right with social media because people were really like sharing about their experiments. So, you could look on YouTube to this day and there's people talking about the experiments that they did with E squared. And somehow through word of mouth, it literally just shot up, into the stratosphere. Literally, I don't know, it's been published in 40 languages. To this day, I hear from people all over the world. And it just was this sensation is, really. So how long did it take? I guess, I don't know, 20 years from when it was first written to when it, became the big success that it was. But
Yeah.
once it did come out as E squared, it took off pretty quickly. Like it came out in January of 2013. By the summer of that year, I was on the New York Times bestseller list. So it happened pretty fast in terms of just that particular incarnation of that book.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so I heard you say hit a couple times. Are we psychic?
I kind of feel like all of us have a connection and can hear from this bigger thing. I've never called myself psychic, nor do I think that I am. Maybe you're going to blip me out like, okay, she can't be in my podcast.
No,
but,
absolutely not.
but I do feel like all writing and all art, all creativity is coming from something bigger than us. So you could call that psychic. You could
Yeah.
certainly call it a bigger connection. And I believe all of us have access to it. I think most of us don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And those that do pay attention to it, I think are deeply rewarded because, I think the universe is always wanting to bestow its gifts upon us. And if some writer, some musician, some creative person, some podcaster, decides to listen to that voice, can share and give the message to other people. So in my mind, we're all sort of psychic. But again, there's another word that has a lot of connotations to it. I mean, some people,
True.
you say psychic and they're like, goodbye. It's funny. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if are you psychic? Is that kind of where your podcast comes from or?
Well, no, the podcast is sort of an experiment in getting psychic, but also along the way acknowledging that everyone ultimately is.
Yes.
It constantly reaffirms that. But
Yeah.
I believe like listening to those messages is a very psychic thing.
Right. I mean, I always say it's the only conversation that matters,
Yeah.
because we have so many voices in our head of things we picked up in our culture, things we picked up in our family. And it has totally negated that connection that we have. Because if we're listening to those voices, our brain forms these little neural pathways and it'll say, oh, life is dangerous. I'm separate from the rest of the world. All the little voices, all the little thoughts that we learn. So God is, or life, or whatever you want to call it, is way greater than that. And the more quiet we can get, the more we can erase those other messages, the more that voice will come to us because it's looking for scribes. I don't know if you read my book, Art and Soul Reloaded, but it's like it is constantly looking for people to, carry the message forward. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So can we get to the meat of what E squared is about? What is it about? And why did you write it?
Well, there's a lot of people out there that are familiar with the principles that I talk about in E squared. I mean, you can go back to the Bible and it says, ask and ye shall be given. I mean, however that goes, ask and whatever. Or seek and you shall find, ask and it'll be given. Well, we all sort of have heard this, but do we know this? And so what I did, and I think the reason that it just became so popular is I'm saying, don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything anybody says. Test it out for yourself. Is it true? So what I did in the book is I literally took these hypotheses, like there is this force greater than us that we're calling God or the dude or whatever we call it, that there really is this force that we can connect with. I mean, that's experiment number one. And, we don't beat around the bush where we're like actively looking for it. Most of the experiments are 48 hours or less. And so we literally say to the dude, hey, you've got 48 hours. Show me your presence. So basically, it's taking principles that have been around forever and putting them in a framework in the form of a scientific experiment and then testing them out for yourself. Because people can tell you anything, but until you see it with your own two eyes, you very likely won't believe it. I mean, you might kind of believe it. And it's really funny because even people that have seen all the amazing miracles, I mean, myself, I cannot even tell you how many emails I get starting out with, you are never going to believe this. I mean, I get so many stories. I'm in a couple possibility posses. We share these stories. But even to this day, I find myself sometimes being, oh, wow, I'm so surprised. It's like, why am I surprised? I know this. It's reaffirmed to me over and over and over again. However, I still sometimes, I have that old messaging, those old patterns, those old habits of thought that a lot of us have.
So why did you write it?
I feel like it's important information. I think people need to know this. And I think I felt called to write it. So that goes back to that psychic. It wasn't, this was given to me. I feel like all creative gifts are a gift from the universe, from the bigger thing. Now, some people are trying to write things and they aren't really feeling called to write, but they just do it because they want, I don't know, for whatever reason. But I feel like if the muse is knocking on your door, and I think the muse knocks on all of our doors, but we all have different forms of expression. But if it's knocking on your door, I feel like it's your responsibility. It was my responsibility to listen to those voices and to put this information out in the world, again, in a way that people can experiment with and play with. I always say, people sometimes will write me, oh, it just didn't work. And I say, well, just lighten up and just play around with it. Or they want to know exactly how to word something or exactly. To me, it's not that important, the exact wording. You will be shown. You just play around and you get into the attitude of a little child out of curiosity, fun. Let's just play games with this. And I think that's another reason why the book was pretty popular, because I wrote it in a way that it was fun. And I think that we want this to be sustainable. We want to depend on this force. And I think as long as something is fun, we will continue to use it. If it becomes a chore and we have to do this, then we kind of lose interest. So I was very specific about making it really fun. And again, also make it to where people can see it with their own two eyes, the power that is in the universe that is working on our behalf.
That's awesome. I assume that you had some sort of manifesting success that led you to write it or to understand the magic that you're giving people access to from the book?
Right. I've long been a student, so to speak, of metaphysics, which of course is our cosmic connection or whatever to the very thing. But I've also been a student of A Course in Miracles for a long time. And almost all of my books, I do have a book called The Course in Miracles Experiment, but E Squared, E Cubed, Think and Grow Rich, all those books that I published with Hay House are basically ideas that I learned from Course in Miracles. And I continue to study Course in Miracles because it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So, they say, go through the workbook one time, 1 year. But here I am 20 some years later, still going through it every year and I do find, deeper meaning and more like, this is the way it is, Pam. This is the way it is. Don't even doubt this. Be willing to turn it over to this higher force. Turn everything over to this higher force. Every single thing in my life, I want to turn over to the higher force.
So, A Course in Miracles was like a channeled work. Is that correct?
It was, yes. In fact, the two people that sort of worked together to bring it into the world, they almost were like, do we really believe this? They were professors at Columbia University, here, a research university, and this disembodied voice is talking to them. In fact, Helen Schuckman, the one that the disembodied voice was speaking through, she claimed to never have really totally believed it, but she worked together with Bill Thetford, and she would tell him what this voice was saying, and he would type it up. And this was like, there was a lot of fighting in the office, and there's got to be a better way. In fact, that is kind of what brings a lot of people to spirituality, especially to Course in Miracles. They'll say, oh my gosh, this isn't working. There has to be a different way to do this. And once they said that and surrendered to this idea that there could be another way, that's sort of when the material began, coming forth through them, because they said there's got to be a better way. And this apparently is the better way.
So crazy. When was that written? Or channeled?
It's been more than 50 years now. So maybe the 70s. I think maybe the 70s, but I'm not 100% sure. I used to know the date. I'm one of these people that's kind of big picture. So I kind of know the big picture, but when you ask me dates and things, I have to go back to my notes because I don't always remember those things. But I know it's been at least 50, maybe 60 years now even.
Time isn't real. It's fine.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. What is manifesting?
Manifesting. Well, we always manifest all the time. People have an idea of what it is. Oh, I want a new car, or I want a new job, or I want a new boyfriend, or whatever it might be. And then when that happens, they call that manifesting. But the truth of it is, we are always connected to everything. And what we see in our lives is what we put our attention upon. So when we're manifesting a new car, we're taking our attention off our old car, off the fact that we don't think we like our car, and we're just seeing that new car. Once you see that picture in your mind and it becomes more real than the picture that you're apparently seeing, then it manifests into your life. And some people are just really good at it. The thing is, we're all manifesting. We do it all the time. It's just that we don't consciously use it. And we often manifest those negative thoughts in our head as opposed to what we truly want. And one thing that's happened for me, it's interesting. I wrote this whole book about manifesting, but I am not one who these days really writes down a whole lot. Oh, I want this and this and this. I haven't done a vision board or any of that stuff or affirmations forever because I so trust in the goodness of the universe that it brings to me just exactly what I need and what I want. I mean, I might do little things like, oh, let's hope this interview, not hope, let's expect this interview to go really well today. Something like that. But
Yeah.
it's not like I'm out there trying to manifest anything in material form. I'm really all about manifesting love and peace and joy and the truth. I want the truth to be more apparent in all people's awareness. So that's maybe what I'm manifesting.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I know the term manifesting has negative connotations, and I think that also sometimes that term is associated strictly with material things.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that I'm not really interested in material things. I'm not interested in manifesting that. I mean, I have more than I could ever need. I have more than so I'm really more about the things I'm interested in now is changing consciousness, about being more open to nature and listening to life. What is life trying to do through me? I mean, I'm responsible to letting life work through me. So that's really what I'm trying to manifest. But there's nothing if I needed, in fact, last time I wanted a new car, I mean, one just showed up in my driveway and I, paid the guy and there it was. So those kind of things just aren't real important to me. I feel like in some ways we have such a consumerist culture. And I feel like that brings us the opposite of what we really are, which is this connection, this peace and love. So I just think it's funny that people think of me as, oh, hey, you want to manifest something, do Pam Grout's work. And it's true, it works. But I even say in one of the chapters that, that you need to know that, like there's 4 levels of consciousness. And yeah, you need to know that your thoughts, play out. They create their likeness in your world. You need to know that. But then eventually it's just like, well, that's easy. Like I love Peace Pilgrim. And she used to say, do you know who Peace Pilgrim is?
I don't.
Well, she just walked across the country back and forth, spreading peace, and just was carrying the clothes on her back. And she said, making money, that's easy. That's a piece of cake. I am out for something different. And I would say that's more in line with what I'm out for, because it's easy to make money, to manifest things, except for when people think it's hard and then they manifest that reality in their life. The most important thing is just to believe it's, make everything smooth and easy. Make it easy. You have no reason to make it hard except for your resistance, except for your beliefs that it's hard. It's not.
Yeah, I have to say, definitely your work does not come across like you are prioritizing material wealth. It definitely was clear to me that you want peace and love. I have noticed for myself over the course of the past year and a half as this project unfolds, and it's something that came to me. I have never been plugged into the outcome, and I find that whenever that happens, whenever I am following that little voice that I pick up when I'm on a walk and I get an idea for how I need to communicate with this audience or how I need to navigate things in my life and my business and my family, those are the things that just flow. And they often defy logic. They often defy the economy. And how it's structured to make us think we have to do things a certain way. I kind of think like that's also a lot of what your writing is about. Opening people up to notice that, one, we're magical, and two, to listen.
So true. Well, in my book, Think and Grow Rich, it's a takeoff, obviously, on Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. But what I say, I go, if you guys pick this up because you want to but make a bunch of money, sorry about this, but I have 5 different kinds of capital that this book is about. And it's about creative capital, which to me really leads to every other kind of capital. Social capital, connection and people being together. Let's see, spiritual capital, which in some ways the same connection and creativity. Let's see, adventure capital. And then I'm trying to think what the 5th one is now. It's been a while since I've looked at that book. But anyway, the point is that there are other really valuable commodities, so to speak, in life. And our system set up that we value financial commodities over all these other things. So I don't, and I feel like going after the financial capital and all that it brings is sort of a sure recipe for discontent and unhappiness, because people think that will bring them great joy, or that's what they want, because they're trained. We're trained that that's what we want. We're trained more is better. That's what we're trained for. But I've found, certainly in my own experience, that it's just the opposite. More love, yes. More peace, more connection, yes. But more things and more money. I mean, it just bogs you down,
So true.
Really a matter of, your head, and what's in your head is where happiness comes from.
Yeah. Let's talk about negative thoughts, fears, and worrying about the past and the future.
I have a chapter in Course in Miracles experiment, and I say, I don't know if you ever saw that little bit that Bob Newhart did. When he was a therapist, and he called it "Stop It Therapy." So that was my first thought when you said that, because this woman comes in and she says, "Oh, I've got blah 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 happening," and he says, "Well, I can help you fix that." And she says, "Oh, okay, great." And he goes, "It's really simple, it's just 2 words. Do you really want to hear it?" "Oh, yes, but blah, blah, blah," And then she goes on and on and on and on. And then at the end, he goes, "Stop it." Which is pretty funny. But I mean, the whole bit, because she goes, and then she adds this to it and adds that to it. And I think that's what happens is we have a thought. Most thoughts mean nothing. They just could go right on through. But we take out one like, "Oh, I'm afraid that I won't have enough money this month," let's say. So then we start adding more and more and more thoughts. And then we build a shrine to this particular thought until it takes over our life. So we have to look at, the thoughts that come up are important to shine light on. We don't want to, stuff them down and pretend like we're not having that thought. But we also have the ability to let it move right on out if we don't, like I said, build a monument to it. And that's what ends up happening. Another story I've often told, I'm not sure even where, but about, you don't walk into, say, Macy's, pick out the ugliest dress you can find and take it to the counter. So why do we pick out ugly thoughts and things we don't really want and then purchase those? We do have some control over that. And again, we don't want to beat ourselves. It's okay to have any thought. Any thought is perfectly okay. But do we want to keep it going? Do we want to keep, adding more fuel to that fire? That's our choice. And I think it's important that people know deep inside all of us, and this is, maybe a bigger shock than knowing that these experiments work. There is a deep sense of peace and joy inside every human being. And oftentimes they're not aware of it because of the little mental churning squirrel cage in our head that keeps telling them otherwise. And I really like Byron Katie a lot. And she says, life is perfect except for what we're thinking and believing. And it's really true. It's so true.
Yeah. So how do you interrupt negative thoughts?
Well, I try to start my day on a positive note to begin with, because, in the morning when you first wake up, it's like there are no thoughts, and then, the thoughts start coming in. So I've found in my practice that if I start my day, like really literally first thing by going outside and connecting with nature, to me, looking at that sun, looking at what's happening in my yard, that to me is just so powerful. And then I write, in my journal every morning. I do my Course in Miracles. But so I guess my first strategy on stopping negative thoughts would be to not let them start in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying they don't. But one of the things Course in Miracles is very clear. It says, decide the kind of day you want to have. And I always say, something amazingly awesome is going to happen to me today, or bodaciously beautiful, whatever. And then it says that if you make no other decisions, that's the kind of day you're going to have. If you make no decisions on your own, again, if that squirrely brain doesn't get involved, you will have a bodaciously beautiful, amazingly awesome day. However, if a thought, this is again Course in Miracles, if a thought comes up, a negative thought, as they are wont to do, because we all live in this society and we have a lot of patterns, you literally ask to be, I ask to see this differently. So I feel like, it's funny, like the psyche thing. I feel like the Holy Spirit, that's what the Course in Miracles calls it. I often call it the Holy S. But whatever this is, this bigger thing, it is always here for us, waiting to be consulted. But when we start getting in that little, wheel of thoughts, we don't think to ask for its help. So there's a saying, or I think, call on a strength bigger than my own. I mean, that's what I like to do. Call on a strength bigger than my own. And that is there. Coming to depend on that and to recognize that it's always there. I mean, that's the whole secret. We are not alone. We are not just these isolated human beings out there struggling against the world. We are connected to life, and life wants to work with us, but we do have to be aware that we're connected to life, and we do have to ask for its help. And you can just talk to it like you're talking to, like you and I are talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Let's talk about what happens when we give. Is generosity a form of manifestation?
I believe so. The Course in Miracles says, all that I give is given to myself. So if we give judgmental thoughts towards someone else, we'll get that. If we give love and kindness, we get that. So that's pretty profound. All that I give is given to myself. And if anything that you want, give it away and it will come back tenfold. I mean, that's what it says in the Bible, that whole tithing thing, 10%, it comes back tenfold. And I truly believe that very strongly. What we give is what we receive. So yes, generosity is very, very important. It makes you realize how beautiful and how cared for you are. When you're afraid to give, that means you're in sort of a tight, contracted space, and there's a big wall around you and things cannot come to you. But as you give, as you open, you're, making a pathway for all your good to come into you.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what is that experiment in? I think it's in E Cubed. It's about passing out $5 bills and leaving a note. Like, try doing that and not feeling amazing for the rest of the day.
Right. And they're not just $5 bills. I mean, you can do it however you want.
Tell us what it is.
Giving them is, but I also have put a little Post-it note on it and say, you are beautiful. I mean, you're out there you're giving hope to someone. You're blessing people. And that's the surest way to get prosperity that there is, by giving. And it's so much fun to do that. I mean, I love to do that. One time, my partner and I, we went out and we had this big sign, like maybe a homeless person would have, and it said, "We are fed, housed, and deeply blessed. We need to give." And so we were just giving money away. And it's really weird how people, they're afraid of, like, these people want something from us. But no, we were like so blessed, we needed to give. And eventually we did, give the money away. But it was hard to do in a way, because people can't believe that somebody would want to give stuff away. I mean, we're so in this protected, cramped spot of believing the world's out to get us that we can hardly take it in, generosity.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's, yeah.
It's crazy. I admit too, like, if I saw you out there, I would pause. Like,
yeah.
What are they selling?
Right. Though, yeah, they want to know what we're trying to get them to do, for sure.
Exactly. What church do you need me to go to? Okay, but so what is the note that you attach to in that particular experiment? Do you remember what the note said?
The world is beneficent. You are loved. You are beautiful. Anything, just any kind of giving. But just leaving the $5 bills is fine too.
Yeah.
But it's fun to do it. I've done that so many different times. My daughter and I used to do it. Again, Jim and I we just went and got $1,000 and just gave it away. And I have a little sister in the Big Brother Big Sister program. She and I will go out and do that. Another time we, gave some money to a coffee shop and said, we want to buy coffee. Whoever comes in, the first, I don't know, 100 people, we want to buy their coffee. So just doing different things like that. And that's just sort of fun. I mean, I think the real giving is of your spirit and of your light, but that's just a fun thing to do. And then
Yeah.
it does open you up and it makes you realize how generous the universe is.
Do you feel like there was some amount of healing that needed to occur for you in order to become a good manifester?
I think that is one of the things people talk about is, do it with feeling. But see, again, I kind of bristle at that term to be a good manifester.
Yeah.
We are all good manifestors. It's just that we're not conscious of what we're manifesting. So we're manifesting this world that we were taught, that we were, that we're limited, that we're scared, or that we're separate. That's what we manifest. So to say a good manifester, I mean, to me, it's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Because you can't not manifest. It's just
Yeah.
people manifest old patterns.
Right.
They manifest the past. So the best manifesting, or again, that's like a judgment, like, oh, the better manifesting.
Right.
But if you have an intention, if you have something you want, then let go of the known and be open to that sort of a thing happening.
Yeah.
The less we know, the more can happen. We're so sure we know. Like I've used this example before. People are like, oh, I want $1 million, so I'm going to play the lottery. And they're just sure that's, well, you think of your odds on that. I mean, the universe has so many more ways to manifest $1 million. I mean, there's a gazillion ways, even ways we haven't thought of yet. But people are so sure that's the one way they're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's like we put handcuffs on this beneficent spirit by telling it how it's going to manifest for us.
Yeah.
And that could happen. But there's still so many ways we haven't even thought of how it could happen. So to me, the most important thing is to let go and surrender and to trust and say, you know what, I just know that I am totally blessed and taken care of, and I'm just going to let the universe provide.
Yeah.
And it will. It will.
It's like we're all exactly the same level of manifester. It's about the perspective from which we do it.
Exactly. And to just be aware, if you're seeing something in your life that you're not happy with, you're somehow separated. You've put up some block, some wall from source, if you want to call it source. So the best way, I mean, really, truly, we can look at our lives and we can say, here's what I'm manifesting, because that is the truth. Whatever we see in our life, that is what we've manifested. If we become conscious and want to manifest different things, then we literally have to start, chipping away at the marble, like Michelangelo found David in the marble. And we have to start chipping away all those thoughts and beliefs that we're currently manifesting. And we have to let go to the truth. In fact, the Course in Miracles says that if we're not 100% happy, joyful, connected, feeling connected all the time, then there's still something in there that has, we're manifesting something besides the truth. And so, I only want to manifest the truth, which is, how the world really is.
Yeah. Well, what do you say when people are really sort of plugged into their hardships? Like, kind of like, I'm a crabby asshole because I had a hard childhood and I had these traumas.
Yeah, people believe those stories so strongly. I mean, that basically you want to know, I mean, that's the story of the world. We all feel like we're victims. We all feel like we had a crappy childhood. I mean, that's a very common story that's out there, but really the world is made up of stories. And if you want to keep telling that story, that's fine. But also, if you examine those thoughts, you realize there were some things that were really great about your childhood. I mean, again, so you asked, what would I say? One of the questions what would you like to have happen? Because it gets them away from thinking, investing, so to speak, in that story of the past, because we're all repeating the past again and again. We get up every morning. We think we're in the same place. We think we know what our husband looks like. We think what our job's going to be like. We think our kids are going to. So once we have these set ideas, that's all that can ever happen. So that's why I start in the morning as much as possible, plugging into to the everything, plugging into the everything. So more things can happen. So I guess just like I said, a question would be, what would you like to have happen? Just try to maybe switch just a little bit, like that thing Jesus said, turn your cheek. Well, that's partly what it is. Turn your cheek to look in a different direction. Where we put our focus, where we shine our spotlight, that's what we're going to see in our life. And we do have swivel heads, so we can begin to look at other things, and it might be just so small, some little bitty thing to be grateful for. But really, when you think about it, every morning you get up, what a gift! Your heart's beating, the sun came up. You didn't have to do anything. We are blessed with so many things. One of the things I'm doing right now that I'm having so much fun. Like I said, I love being outside. It's my favorite thing. This time of year, it's so beautiful. I've got a lot of trees, so I can be out in the shade. But every morning I go outside first thing, let that sun, because I feel like sun is very healing. I mean, our whole
Yeah.
planet, revolves around the sun. The sun created, light provides our food, everything, so I go out and I kind of connect to that. And then I walk around my yard and I pick up little, whatever blossoms that have fallen down, whatever from the flowers, what's there on the ground. And then I make a mandala every morning. I've been doing this for a few weeks now, and it's a temporary thing. It gets blown away. I have been taking pictures, except for I forgot a couple days. But so I take a picture. But what it has done, I'm not, I don't care if it stays there. It's just something I do. But it's like saying to me every morning, these gifts are there waiting for me. They're just right here in my yard. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to do anything. Here they are. And it's really made me focus on, the richness of life and how life's always changing, always evolving, always expanding. And yes, we want to stop it in its tracks and want to think it's going to be just like it was yesterday. But every single day, it's different blossoms, a different sky, different, different birds serenading me as I walk around. So I don't know. It's just been a real kind of cool exercise in really trusting. Like there's that whole manna from heaven that fell down for the Israelites, maybe, or I don't even know who it was, but manna from heaven came down. It's like if we could get away from our ideas in scarcity, our belief in scarcity and limitation, who's to say manna wouldn't still fall from the heaven? And I know people go, "You're crazy, Pam." But see, that's what stops it is, when people say I'm crazy, I'm like, thank you so much. My friend Anita Murjani says, when somebody calls me crazy, I am so surprised I almost fall off my unicorn.
Exactly. On that note, I can't help but acknowledge, I just really want your take on this, but for a lot of people, the world is a very intense, difficult place, and a lot of people feel helpless in the face of tragedies that continue to play out on our planet. How do you face things playing out with humanity or even your own life that make you feel helpless?
Well, I go back to this moment. I have no guarantee that I'll be around next moment, none. But I do have this moment right now, right here. And I want to get as much out of it as I possibly can. Now, I can choose to spend this moment. Now we're already into a whole new moment, a whole new experience. But I can choose to spend it looking at all the issues because, of course, you can't live in this planet right now without recognizing a lot of things are not ideal. you know, we have wars, we have global warming, there's things. But in the whole big picture of life, life's just doing what life does. Maybe we'll blow each other up. That could happen tomorrow. But what do I want to miss right now, right this day, this moment, worrying about that? Because that makes me, if I'm going to, if it's all going to go to, hell tomorrow, I want to at least enjoy this day right now. And I feel like once you open to that's like opening to God, opening to possibility, opening to the unknown, then there's space in there. So if there's something personally that I'm meant to do, like, for example, if I'm meant to give money or fly to Ukraine or whatever it might be, I will know.
Mhm.
when I'm open to that, the more we open to that possibility, to God, life, source, whatever, mine to do will be presented to me. I do know very clearly mine to do is not to worry and fret and, add energy to that story.
Yeah.
There are people maybe that are meant to do that. That might be their life purpose. That is not my life purpose, is to add any energy to that story. And I'm fully acknowledging that life could end for all of us at any moment. I mean, that is the facts. Those are the facts, I should say. So I don't know. I don't know if that really addresses your question.
It's kind of like, how can I focus on my wants and desires when seemingly very unfair things are happening to innocent people?
Well, okay, so there's unfair things happening. What are you doing about it? You know what I mean? Like, what can you do? I feel like, because I believe we're all connected, I feel that me putting energy into a different possibility at this point is the best that I know how to do. When I'm led to do something else, I will do it. But I just know, because I feel so strongly, there's that whole butterfly flapping in Japan will, I
Yeah.
don't know, change the world over in Ecuador, whatever that little saying is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a scientific fact. So who's to say that if one more of us here on planet Earth could believe in peace and could believe in this, that we could turn this ship around?
Yeah.
We don't know if we're the 100th monkey or whatever, but I feel like it's important work. I mean, people go, oh, well, you're so lazy, you're not doing anything. Well, I don't see it that way. I feel like holding that vision for possibility, that openness for a different way, is very important work. One of the issues in our world is we feel like force, that a body act, it's the old Newtonian thing, a body will stay the same until force is acted out upon it. So we feel like, okay, we need to get this many people on social media. We need to get all this. We need to get all this, force and people. And we need to fight this and we need to do all this. Well, that's not really how it works in the quantum world. I mean, one
Yeah.
little thing can change everything. So part of what's going on in the world is these old stories that we're told about the best way to solve something is to create mass and get together to fight these things. It's all the fighting that's causing more fighting. So I mean, we're getting a little esoteric, but I believe this from the bottom of my heart.
Do you meditate?
I do. Lately, my meditation has been more this being outside and really connecting with the sun and the birds and all that sort of thing. Over my life, I've meditated somewhat regularly. Again, connecting with source every morning is always really important.
Yeah.
It probably to some people doesn't look like a meditation practice because I'm walking around my yard with my bare feet, but that's my current thing. But yes, I feel like connecting, which is kind of what I think meditation does,
For
is
sure.
very, very important.
Yeah, that's
So
cool. I was going to
yeah.
ask you next, like, what is your meditating like? Because, yeah, I feel like what my concept of what meditation was for many years before I actually started doing it as a regular practice is very different than my regular practice.
Exactly. So I've done the traditional meditation, like
Yeah.
you sit there for 20 minutes and you whatever. I mean, you name a meditation, I've tried it. So,
Yeah.
I've done a lot of things because I do feel it's important.
Yeah. I know. I actually can't say enough about how cool it is to actually just go do a walking meditation. I swear the trees will tell you what you need to know.
I so believe that.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, okay. Not only do I believe it, okay, I don't know if you read this in one of my books, but I wrote about George Washington Carver. Do you remember this story?
No.
Okay. I mean, he basically saved the South. He came up with all these different uses for, when all the cotton and everything was depleting the soil, he came up with all these uses for the peanut. But he has like 35, 40 patents. I mean, he really was this incredible scientist. He, has a PhD. I mean, he's just an amazing person. And people go, wow, how did you invent all these things? I mean, how did this happen? And even though they credit him because of the PhDs and the scientific research, he said that every morning he went out and talked to the trees and to God, and it told him how to invent peanut butter. I think that might be one of his inventions. How to whatever. I mean, whatever all of his inventions are, it told him what to do. This force, the trees. And of course, he called it God. He was pretty religious. Again, that's just a word. It's just a name. It's not important what you use it. And the reason I tend to shy away from it is because a lot of people have baggage. Other people love it. So, I mean, I'm certainly happy to use it. And that's what George Washington Carver called it.
I totally understand. Yeah, I agree with you. That's cool. Will you please talk about your 222 Foundation?
I started it, I guess, 6 years ago. I think we just gave our 6th award. I started in honor of my daughter, Tasman, who came to me when I was 37 years old. She was just this beautiful light and love that came to me. You know, I wasn't married. I was this travel writer going all over the world. And she came to me as this incredible gift of light and love and really kind of moved me to kind of settle down, write the books that I've written and do some of the things that I've done. And she was just this amazing light, always just a beautiful light. Well, again, life, you know, is just life being life. She ended up having an aneurysm and died very suddenly 1 week after her 25th birthday. It was the biggest shock in my life. Well, maybe the first biggest shock was that I'm pregnant, you know, but anyway, then maybe that was the second biggest shock. But so she and I had a thing about 222. It was kind of a funny thing. She started when she was young. She was in junior high and her friends, she just loved the number 222. I think she had a Facebook page, The Amazingly Awesomeness of 222, whatever. And then, you know, her friends would say, hey, what time is it? And even if it was 5:14, she'd say 222 or what does something cost? And she'd say $2.22. You know, it was just her thing. And her friends would start calling her at 222. And then as, you know, this developed, we were on a couple of vacations one summer after she started this. And, you know, we're in Alaska, we get 222 as our room number. We're in London, we get 222. So it became a thing. So whenever she and I'd see 222, so we just kind of did this 222 thing. So
Yeah.
after she passed, I decided that I would start the Pam Grout 222 Foundation and that we would give a grant to an individual or an organization that's working to change the consciousness of the world. And it's different than, you know, there's a lot of people trying to supply needs, but this is like really changing the consciousness in a creative manner to move our society from one of consumption to one of openness and peace and beauty. So it was started in honor of Taz. I feel like she works with me on it. Now she's in a different realm, of course. And, you know, that was a very, you know, difficult time for me. Still would not be my choice. But I'm also surrendered to what my life is. And this is my life. I, again, wasn't trying to get pregnant, you know, and I got this amazing gift of being with this woman for 25 years, this girl, this light, who truly was like an angel on earth, or I don't know. She was just a very unique person. In fact, every now and then I'll do a psychic reading, you know, to kind of, you know, I think any mom that's lost a child will want to do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes the mediums will go, wow, your daughter, she's really something, wasn't she? Like, well, yeah, she really was.
Wow.
But anyway, so that's kind of the 222 Foundation. We have funded everything from this place in India near the Taj Mahal in Agra. Some women that had acid thrown on them and have disfigured faces. That was what we did the first year. I happened to be in Agra. I was already contracted to go before Taz passed, and it's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to go do this? I'm, you know, devastated. Everything's been pulled out from under me. But my best friend said she'd go with me, so we went. And then we get to the Taj Mahal, and it turns out that it was built in 22 years by 22,000 workers or something. So it's all this 222. And actually the person buried there, her name is Mumtaz.
Oh my God.
And it was a monument of love. So it's like, wow, talk about synchronicity.
Yeah, that's
So anyway,
crazy.
so then we leave there and we go to this place called Shiro's Hangout where these women just give of themselves. You know, it used to be in India, because this happens quite a bit. These guys, you know, a very patriarchal society, they'll throw acid. And then the women will go into hiding because, you know, who wants, you know. But these women, you know, they bake goodies, they serve coffee and tea. And so they were getting ready to move. So we funded their move to this new location. So that was the first one. And then we've started a regenerative garden up in Canada. We've got another project in India. We've planted a forest of 2,223 trees. So anyway, just different projects that we've chosen to fund every year on 2/22, February 22nd.
That's so
So,
incredible.
yeah,
I'm so sorry that you lost her. It's really intense, but you're doing beautiful things with her.
thank you.
So cool. Wait, I want to know actually about the foundation. Who helps you with it?
Um, well, when I decided that I wanted to do it, I mean, again, it just came to me like, the books come to me and it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I have no idea how to do a foundation, right?
Yeah.
So my accountant, she put me in touch with these people that kind of handle all the stuff. Like they take the money in, then I just tell them who to send it to. So they really do all the hard work. I put out the call for pitches, or hey, send us your project. But oftentimes I find projects on my own, but I do usually, put out a call, like usually October, November, something like that, so people can send ideas in. This past year, we really wanted to work on regenerative agriculture projects. So we've got an orchard here in my hometown. It's the first one we've actually done here in my hometown, a project out in Georgia, and then projects over in Africa with regenerative farming, which is something I'm become quite passionate about. I had just seen that movie Common Ground,
Yeah.
which is a great movie. And anyway, so from that, we was like, that's what we chose to fund this particular year. So yeah,
That's so cool. You get to be sort of surrounded by, you get to be exposed constantly to people doing amazing things.
right. Yes, it's such a gift for sure.
It's so cool. You have said that you aspire to be the Warren Buffett of happiness.
Oh.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I was talking earlier about those different kinds of capital.
Yeah.
I think I might have said that in that chapter where I was talking about being wealthy in other things besides what the world sees as valuable, that I have learned is not really, the road to more contentment, more meaning in your life. So I really want to fully embrace every moment and see what's there and enjoy it as much as I possibly can. That's not to say I do. I mean, I'm a human being. You know, don't always have that, but that's my aspiration. And
Yeah.
it's always good to have something that you're aspiring to. Again, like what am I trying to manifest? I mean, something like that, the Warren Buffett of happiness. I'm sure I just thought that was a funny thing to say. But I mean, I'm seriously, that to me is what's important. That's the kind of thing that I want.
Yeah. That's
Not
cool.
just for me, for everyone. Like it says in the Course in Miracles, if I get something big deal, I mean, everyone needs it. Everyone needs to have wealth and prosperity and love and peace and all the stuff. Everyone,
Yeah.
there's can't leave anybody behind.
Yeah. That's awesome. Can we talk about the importance of writing for a minute? How important do you think writing is in one's spiritual practice?
It may not be for everyone, but it certainly has been for me. This whole thing about know thyself, because that is, the greatest spiritual practice is knowing thyself. And that has been the route for me to get there is through writing. And that includes my journaling, my writing, of my books, my writing my blog posts. So it's everything to me. Now, I recently had people try 30 days of writing in a journal, writing to this voice, the Holy Spirit. It's a thing they do at AA called the two-way, where you expect the divine to answer you. So a lot of people did it, but a lot of people said, well, that wasn't their route. So everybody has a different route. So it's not really me to say that. But for me, that's all I can say. In my practice, writing has given me so much. And it helps connect me to the bigger thing. And it helps me figure out issues in my life that I, need some guidance and clarification on. So, yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about writing.
Yeah. You prefer pen and paper or typing because it's faster?
I do a journal. In fact, my garage is filled with old journals that I've been keeping forever. So yeah, I feel like I'm literally getting guided through writing. I feel that, that's a really potent force for some people to get that guidance.
Yeah.
And this two-way, that I introduce people to, I mean, it's something that they started in AA way back when. In fact, Bill W. in the 12-step program, he eventually took it out of the 12 steps because that was in the original 12 steps that you would literally ask for guidance every morning. You'd sit down with a notebook and a pen and ask for guidance. And then he just sort of thought it was a little bit too woo woo. So he took it out of the 12 steps when they did the final version. And so, anyway, somehow or another, I found out about this. And that's when I started sort of doing that. And I had, people that listen to my blog do that too. And then come to find out, Julia Cameron had just written a book. She wrote The Artist's Way, and she was talking about writing down guidance. Elizabeth Gilbert is doing a thing where she's getting people to write down their guidance, or like, what would love say to them? It's like, wow, this is something, an idea whose time has come. Like, this is something really powerful. Like, I feel like, again, this spirit, this bigger thing, life, is trying to work with us and wants us to, we're going to destroy ourselves if we keep on the path that we're on. So how do we get out of these ruts that we're in? And I feel like, this two-way, we can actually talk to this spirit and get some answers. So maybe that's kind of what's happening, is more and more people do that.
Yeah.
Because, we know there's a solution to everything. A solution, what does that mean? I mean, we know there's a better way. Let's just say there is a better way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What do they call that? Automatic writing.
Oh, yes. I've heard of that. I think I've done that before too. I mean,
yeah, it's fun.
Name a practice, I've probably tried it at some point or another.
Totally. But a lot of people say that if you really get into it, you look back and you have no recollection of writing it, and it gets completely channeled. And
right. Oh, yeah.
It's pretty cool. Can we talk about how to plug into a higher consciousness in following our path?
We are plugged into a higher consciousness at all times. We often have a big veil over it or a big wall over it, and we're not aware of it. So how to hook in, again, would just take down all those bricks in that wall that we've erected to keep it away, because it is there, always there. You don't have to seek it. You don't have to look for it or follow these 10 rules, or, there is nothing that can destroy this connection that we have. It's really a matter of making it a priority and believing that it's there, because once you recognize that it's there, it becomes so apparent. You're like, why didn't I know this? So it is there, but there are many, many, many ways of becoming, more aware of it. And again, writing's a good way to do that. Meditation works for some people, walking in nature. There's so many different people out there that different things work for. And I'm not one that really likes to give prescriptions on anything. Again, like, my books are all about testing, like, test it out for yourself, do these experiments, play around with this, because there is a way and you will be led. I mean, that's what I believe. Every person will be led if that becomes a priority to them. That's all it takes, is saying, okay, I want to know. I want to see the world differently. I want to be connected. I want the guidance that's mine. I want to I want to participate in this big, circus of life, and I want to play a part, and it's changing, it's evolving.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Everybody does receive their messaging in very unique, special ways. It's true. There's not like a one size fits all practice, but I do love how in I think it's E Squared, where you just remind us spiritual is just the term for non-physical.
Exactly.
I love thinking about it in that way, because it's not that complicated.
Exactly. I mean, the Course in Miracles says, this is what we're trying to do. It's not hard at all. It's just very, very different than the way we've been doing life. We do life feeling separated, feeling like we have to try really hard. We have to follow these rules. Well, that's difficult, but it's not difficult, because that's not what it takes to recognize that thing that is inside each and every one of us that we're connected to.
What happens when we share our lives in whatever capacity with people who are sort of like manifesting the opposite of what we're manifesting?
Well, then you could say that you've manifested that person who is a mirror of you. That is, you want to know what you're manifesting, look at what's in your life. And that is just one more picture in your storybook that you've created from what you're manifesting.
Yeah.
And to put the blame out on somebody else is one of the things that the ego likes to tell us. So it's that person's fault and they're not spiritual or they're not, they're being negative, whatever. That's just you. I don't mean you, but I mean, that's just whoever's seeing that and saying that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. We should probably wind down. And I was going to point out that you love quoting scientists and authors in your book. I was going to ask you what your favorite quote is right now.
Oh, wow. I mean, I literally probably changed my favorite quote by the hour. But one of the ones I've used a lot, I mean, I don't know if this is my favorite quote, but I love this one. It says, any time not spent on love is wasted. And that's by Torquato Tasso. Don't even know who that guy is, but I saw that quote and I wrote it down and I just really love it. But there are so many quotes that I like.
Yeah.
When you're a wordsmith, I mean, I like words. So, of course, that's what I like to collect. I collect quotes. I love them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to close out this podcast with a quote from you.
Oh, cool.
Okay. We, the greatest of all creators with capabilities to build cities and inspire nations, are squandering our time watching reruns of The Office. We have forgotten that whole galaxies exist within our grasp. Pam Grout.
Oh, thank you. I love that. Yeah.
Good reminder.
Yeah.
But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. It's been amazing. And I definitely manifested it.
Well, and I manifested this. It's funny because there for a while I was doing so many podcasts and then I just kind of haven't been doing any. And the other day I thought, it's kind of fun to do another podcast. And then, you send me this request. So it was perfect timing for me. I was just ready to do another podcast.
That's so funny.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying yes.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Pam.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as we did. Be sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss a new episode. If you liked today's episode, please consider leaving a review to help the other psychics find their way here.